colleagues here. I think, as Dr. Wilfarm was saying, it's such an incredible group. But I'll tell you a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing. I specialize in treating children with autism and some other neurodevelopmental disabilities. It's a mystery disease in some ways, and we're getting some clues as to why it occurs. And one of the things we find is that there's problems with what we call the metabolic systems of the body. The metabolic systems of the body is the way you make energy and get rid of some of your wastes. And one of the great things about studying metabolic systems is that we know there's some simple and safe ways, if we could figure out what's wrong, of getting around these metabolic blocks. Sometimes people think of them as like a highway with an accident in it. You could go around sometimes if you could figure out where the blockage is. And in the center of all metabolism is this thing called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is best known for making energy. And almost every cell of our body have mitochondria. We have anywhere from hundreds to tens of thousands of mitochondria, depending on how much energy we need. And there's lots of data that they're not functioning in children with autism. And what's also interesting about them is there's many diseases where we find that the mitochondria may be central or contributing to diseases, including diabetes and cancer and other types of diseases. Of course, I studied mitochondria for many years by taking blood samples from children and measuring their mitochondria. And I'd apply for NIH grants. And the NIH, and at first they were skeptical, and then finally the reviewers came around and said, okay, we believe you that there's some problem with the mitochondria in these kids with autism. But you know something? You're a neurologist, and you're testing the blood. You're not testing the brain. So how are we supposed to really believe you? Of course, you know, it's very hard science. You can't make that assumption that just because something's happening in the blood, it's also happening in the brain. We think that's the case, but we haven't proven that hypothesis. So actually, I was talking to Agus at some point, and he said, "Oh, is that your problem, that you can't get the brain?" He said, "Well, you know, we do surgery on certain children, and what happens is sometimes there's leftover brain, and you know, and you think about this, it's kind of crazy that you know, samples taken from humans, we just discard them and we don't study them." You know, and that's something that we try to do in our lab is use, you know, every sample that we can get because they're very precious. So what we're doing now is we're actually taking samples from children that undergo brain surgery, and some have, most of them have epilepsy, and about half of them have autism also. And so what we can do is take small pieces of the brain sample that's already taken out and is probably going to be discarded. And we've proven, this is the first time it's been done actually, we've proven that we can isolate those mitochondria and we can measure the signal of those mitochondria. That was the first part of our feasibility study. That's never been done before. It's been done in animals but not humans. And we actually have some really compelling clinical data on epilepsy, that there seems to be a unique signature in the site where the epileptiform discharge is happening in the mitochondria. And so what we need now is more samples. And to look at these samples so we can figure out actually in the brain what's going on with that powerhouse of the cell, so we can learn how to fix it and make their brains work better. So the project that I was proposing is we propose over a year that we're going to collect about 50 samples and use the fancy machine we have in the lab and the great scientists I have there to actually look at these mitochondria to figure out, to prove that this mitochondrial dysfunction is actually happening in the brain, and figuring out why it's happening and what the characteristics are of it, so we can figure out what to do about it.